everybody, I'm Allie Loth, and you're watching a video on Lord of the Flies. Warning, this video contains spoilers. If you have not yet read or are in the middle of reading Lord of the Flies, do not keep watching this video. You have been warned and therefore are not allowed to rant about how I ruined the book for you in the comment section below. First, let's start with a little info about William Golding, who wrote the book. He was born during 1911 in Cornwall, England, and eventually became an author, even though his parents insisted on him studying natural sciences. In 1940, he served in the British Navy during World War II, and many of his experiences with the bloodshed and terrors of the Second Great War inspired some of the more grueling circumstances that are presented throughout the book. Besides the war, Golding received some of his inspiration from the quite popular The Coral Island, written by R.M. Ballantyne in 1858. Coral Island was a tale of boys stranded on an island who learned to live peacefully and happily together. Golding took this idea from what the boys would do if they were alone on an island and flipped it almost completely around. Lord of the Flies started when a bunch of British schoolboys, presumably from high society, were plane wrecked on an uninhabited island. A boy named Ralph calls all the other boys scattered throughout the forest together for a meeting using his conch shell. Another older boy comes along whose name is Jack, and he is put in charge of hunting after he loses the election for chief to Ralph. As the course of the book continues, the boys start caring less and less about things like signal fire or shelter and become more consumed with the fear about a so-called beast who lives on the island and haunts them at night. The book gets darker and filled with more violence when Jack splits off from Ralph's group and starts his own tribe of painted-faced savages. More and more boys start joining Jack's clan, and soon Simon and Piggy are dead because of the tribe's violent ways. In the end, Ralph is the real only non-savage, and he winds up fleeing for his life towards the ocean, only to be face to face with the naval commander who thinks that the terrified Ralph and the other war-painted covered boys are holding spears behind him, are just having a little fun game of war. The book ends with all the boys crying and the officer gazing at the cruiser in the sea, ready to take the boys home. The message of this book has a couple of parts. In Lord of the Flies, William Golding was trying to tell people that greediness and arrogance of the higher class can lead to conflicts between social classes, disregard for the ideas of the higher class, and chaos. Towards the beginning of the book, Jack takes all the kids who were previously watching the signal fire to go hunting for meat. While they are out trying to kill a pig, the fire goes out exactly when a ship passes by. If Jack had put his pride aside for just a little bit and asked Ralph if he could borrow the fire watchers to hunt with him, they may have been rescued. But because of his arrogance, they weren't rescued and the others were mad at him. A prime example of how greediness can ruin relationships between different classes of people outside Lord of the Flies was the British rule of India during the early 1940s. The British made Indians fight in wars for the British and deployed them all over the world to do their bidding because it was cheaper than supporting their own British-made troops. They shipped out India's teas and spices and only allowed them to buy clothes and salt made in Britain or one of their colonies. Britain's greed for quick money caused millions of Indians to suffer and grew hatred between the two cultures. Besides the all-around growing hatred between Jack and Ralph, Jack begins to hate the rules Ralph made up. He didn't believe that he had to obey them because he thought he was just as good or even better than Ralph. He was the picture of arrogance. The dictionary defines arrogance as follows: arrogance, having or revealing an exaggerated sense of one's own importance or abilities. An example of Jack's arrogance was at a meeting when Jack speaks to Ralph saying, "And you, shut up. Who do you think you are anyways? Sitting there telling people what to do? You can't hunt, you can't sing. Bullocks to the rules." Golding was trying to communicate that when people feel that they are better than another person, they are not as willing to obey orders and follow rules that person makes. This can have extreme drawbacks because if that arrogant person does start leading and is actually not as good as the leader as they think they are, things can go horribly wrong. When the Zhou dynasty defeated the Shang dynasty in 1046 BCE, they made people believe in something called the Mandate of Heaven, which said that there could be one ruler of China who could rule as long as the ruler was in favor with the gods. Some rulers abused this power they had and only ruled for their own selfish gains, spending tons of money on clothes and decorative palaces. If they did this, the Mandate of Heaven declared that people were allowed to rebel, and they sure did. After the Zhou dynasty leaders became corrupt, a rebel who thought he could rule better and more fairly than them started the Qin dynasty, which later became corrupt, just like the Zhou dynasty did. In 206 BCE, a rebel leader destroyed the Qin dynasty and started the Han dynasty. The cycle of people who think they can do better, but actually fail, continues until today. Just like when the Chinese fell into chaos, so did the boys in Lord of the Flies. At the end of the book, after a guy named Roger kills Piggy, who is Ralph's closest friend, Ralph flees into the woods alone. Everyone besides him has joined Jack's clan and painted their faces and bodies. He finds out from two boys that there is to be a hunt tomorrow, but not for pigs, for his own flesh. Jack has a hatred and such a disregard for Ralph as a human being that he is prepared to purposely kill him. If you were paying close attention at the beginning of the video, you remember that he wasn't killed and a naval officer intercepted him before the other boys could get to stick a spear through his noggin. I believe that Golding was trying to teach us all a lesson, that greediness and arrogance of the higher class can lead to conflicts between social classes, disregard for the ideas of the higher class, and all-around chaos. Thanks for watching. I'm Ellie Loth. Enjoy your day. Outside Lord of the Flies was the British rule of India during the early 1940s. The British made Indians fight in wars for the British, deployed them all over the world,